Hey everybody, Average Picker here. So this is the first official prelude to looking at junk locks, I guess. And it's because this is a tangent. This is a bit of a sidetrack that undoubtedly comes up because what's the first thing people think of when they think of junk locks? They think of master locks, right? And somewhere I had a combination lock by them, but I tossed it somewhere when the cats was playing with it. But that's what we think about. And Master Lock has this kind of reputation for being a junk lock. And you see that kind of all over in comments, especially from non-pickers who watch picking videos or very new pickers. There's always this like, oh, Master Lock's junk. So let's just start off this whole thing by saying, first of all, not all Master Locks are junk. They have a range of brands or range of models of locks, and some of them are just fine. Just like, not everything by ASSA ABLOY, is great, even though they are known for, or more known, at least in the US, for their higher end stuff and for, just better locks in general. So yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at. And the short answer, if you don't want to get through however long this video is going to be, the short answer is Master Lock has no incentive to really be any better than they already are. That's the short of it. So yeah, let's look at that in more detail though. So for those of you who don't know, Master Lock is actually owned by a company called Fortune Brands. And Fortune Brands Home and Security, and they make a wide variety of different products under different names, including Moen faucets, which I find kind of interesting for some reason. I don't know why. That one just kind of stuck out to me. And Master Lock also in turn purchased up SentrySafe, so a lot of should be a name that a lot of us know in the lock sport community. Even if you're not into safes, you probably know SentrySafe. And they are pretty much the safe you can find if you walk into any Lowe's or Home Depot. You will find those for keeping your documents safe in fires. So yeah, that's owned by Master Lock. And Master Lock, though, is most known for their padlocks, or let's just say for their variety of personal locks, right? So these are locks that you can move around with, whether they're combination locks or whatever. They've got some very specific bike tubular lock stuff. I think they make a version of the club. Now, Master Lock does actually also make deadbolts, which may surprise some of you. I don't know if I've ever seen a Master Lock deadbolt or door handle, at least not in a case that it's registered with me, and I've known that's what it was. So that's a little bit interesting right there. So at least in the US anyway, Master Lock is the dominant lock, probably. There's no probably about it. It certainly is. Now, I saw some information that shows it's starting to trend and gain a little bit more marketplace across Europe. Don't know to what extent, but at least here in the US, 99% of all the major hardware stores, that's what you're going to find. You're going to walk in and you're going to find Master Lock. So, Lowe's and Home Depot being the really big two. Ace Hardware pulls in there, and there's another company. I cannot remember their name off the top of my head, but it's Master Lock. You walk in and that's it. And that right there is just going to give them, a pretty good dominance. And let's face it, when you think of a padlock, that's pretty much what you think of, right? Now, if we get into the basic numbers on this, Master Lock's estimated annual revenue is about 44.3 million. This is a little bit old. It was on an upward trend, so it's probably a little higher than this is. And you can see in the US, the top competitors, and by this we're looking at the ultimate parent holding companies, right? So you're gonna have ASSA ABLOY, which probably shouldn't be a surprise because ASSA ABLOY owns, just about everything. I forget, they've got like 43 brands or something under them, if not more, which is kind of crazy. There's Algean PLC. I think they're, for all purposes, they make Schlage. I think they're based out of Ireland, but they make Schlage locks, which are very dominant here in the US. And then you've got Fortune Brands, and that's our company right there, Master Lock. That's who owns Master Lock, Fortune Brands. And I was kind of surprised that Dormakaba also has a fairly large spot in the US market. That one took me by surprise. I don't know what all different brands they make. I know they work with a variety of companies. Don't know what their relationship is with all of them, though. And as I said again, these are the parent holding companies of these brands. So for a company that really focuses primarily on just personal locks, like combination locks and padlocks and bike locks and things like that, that's pretty big. If you pair that up against, looking at what they're up against, they're up against and in there with companies that make a wide variety of products. Now, if we get into it more just by brand, it looks like Master's kind of floating down here a little bit. Schlage, 1.6 billion. But, they're dominant in the home market, really, right? For your home locks and things like that, for your doors. And they also, they do a lot of door hardware. And they also, of course, go all the way up into businesses and things like that. So given the wide variety of things they make, that's not a huge surprise. Kwikset. Now, I mostly know Kwikset as being a more home residential product line. I don't know what their commercial side kind of looks like. But 1.43 million is what their kind of estimated revenue is at. But again, not a huge surprise because Kwikset's they are cheap, and they've got the same thing going on that Master Lock does as far as when we say junk locks, I think. Now, a little bit surprisingly, we've got these companies, August and Latch, and I do not know a whole lot about them. From what little I was able to find quickly, it looks like they're mostly in higher end, kind of like your wireless and keypad systems and things like that. So they're pushing that electronic lock end of things. And I know Latch does a lot of stuff commercially and for businesses and things like that, and offer kind of a whole product line of electronic locking systems for your entire business or office complex. And then here comes our humble Master. But again, if you think about what they're doing, I mean, yeah, they make a few deadbolts and things like that and some other hardware. But that is a healthy chunk of the market for a company that mostly focuses, again, on personal locks. Now, I mentioned just being able to walk into 99% of the hardware stores here in America and finding Master Lock. And let's take a look at those prices. Now, these are not looking for deals, all right? This is just kind of the standard pricing you can expect to find them at. And I have not, of course, done the entire product line. We're just looking at the lower end, and we're looking at that for a reason. But so we've got the Master, the 105, $4, $3, the 121, you can get 5 of them. It's pretty much this lock. I don't know if this one actually has that on it, but it is pretty much this small thing laminated off. 5 for $13, right? I mean, that is straight off Master Lock's website. That's not even going and shopping for a bargain or a sale. The Master 3, usually get it for around $6 here in the US. If we pop over and look, the cheapest deal I could find on Americans was an 1100 for $9.45, and that was ordering it online from like Lock World or something like that. But again, it is still, up there higher if we look, and if you're really pinching pennies. And the other thing is, you have to hunt this out. So you're gonna have to know this lock exists and hunt it out, as opposed to just walking into a store and going, oh yeah, that's right, I need a padlock. Oh yeah, my kid needs a lock for his locker at school. Oh yeah, I need a club system for the car. That's what you're gonna find. You're gonna find these Master Locks. You're gonna have to hunt these out more in the US. Now, just for giggles, because I did not realize Master did deadbolts, I looked up. You can find Master deadbolts for sale at Walmart here in the States, and they cost about $7.50 to $12.50. So we're right in line with the Lowe's and the Home Depot brand locks, like Gatehouse. We're right in that realm, and we're kind of in the realm of like a Defiant deadbolt as well, at least the really lower end stuff. Why did I say lower end Defiant? Is there a higher end Defiant? Does Defiant make a higher end lock? Who makes Defiant? Is it just its own brand? Interesting. I have to look into this more. I don't know why the industry itself is starting to become a bit of an interest. Now, I didn't want to pay for the report, but I did find a report breaking down padlock sales in the U.S. Or personal locks, I guess, in the sales in the U.S. Didn't pay for the report, so I couldn't see all the actual numbers. But the little sample they showed, it backed all this up. Master Lock simply dominates, at least here in the States. So that's why I think we can just look at this and go, we know consumers are price conscious. We know consumers vote with their wallet, and we know consumers want convenience. And when you're walking in to 99% of the places here and you need a lock and this is what you're seeing, this is what you're buying. And they're so cheap. This is also why, you're seeing everyone. That's why everybody learns on them. You've already bought your 16-piece Banggood pick set, for $4.95. Now you're excited. You need a lock. You run into Lowe's or Home Depot probably, and that's the first thing you see on the shelf that's sub $10, and that's what you buy. Or you buy a pack of these and you think, yeah, I've got 5 locks now. And we know when you're manufacturing things and you're trying to get that low price point, you've got to skimp, right? So that brings us back to the short answer. There is simply no incentive for Master Lock to do better. They had that campaign in the 70s where they shot their lock with a gun, and I think people still remember that, because it stays hanging. It's got the bullet hole like straight through the middle, shackles unharmed, and people still remember that. They used it as a logo for a short time. They kind of logofied that image, and it's not to say it's, and when we're saying junk lock, this is where it gets a little complicated, right? We're talking about it is easy to pick. It's not a terrible lock though. it does hold, right? And that's what you want as a consumer. And you don't want to have to, you're not really into it for shopping around a whole lot, right? Until you get some of these, on your gate or holding your motorcycle or scooter or bicycle or whatever, and start finding them, cut open or whatever, and your stuff stolen. You're probably not going to be looking for better options, right? You're going to stick with that because I have put this on 10 items and I still have those 10 items, right? Now, if you put them on 10 items and you start finding you've only got 5 of those things still left in your life, then you're probably going to have some incentive to start looking for something else. But until then, they simply are dominating that low-end market. They're saturated in the marketplace, and they've got the cost down to a point that's pretty tough to beat. So, all their R&D that they do is probably just going into how can we save even another 1/10 of a cent off of making one of these, as opposed to how can we make this stronger? Because let's face it, that picking ability is not something that you see, right? It's not something you physically see. You don't see that strength in it. So, what's inside there doesn't really matter, right? We are a numbers society. You see it across computers. They advertise, the fastest speed, the highest RAM, miles per gallon on cars. It's all under ideal conditions, just trying to you push that number up because it's something visual that the consumer can latch onto and understand, as opposed to, there's not really a good way to visualize that is just a better core in there. So your incentive really is to just make the core as absolute cheaply as possible. Throw some more printing on the box and, say, oh, it's a 20 out of a scale of 1 to 10 security or something like that. I mean, that's where the incentive is, right? Yeah. So I suppose one question that comes up is the internet starting to change any of that? Is in the sport lockpicking community and those that regularly watch lockpicking videos, there is this certain thing. Master Lock is synonymous with junk, right? And you can see this across a whole slew of comments. As soon as the word Master Lock is mentioned, somebody says, "Oh, those are garbage locks." I would argue yes, but I would also argue no. For the price and the cost of them and the convenience of picking them up, you can't really beat that. As far as, what's going on in there and how easy it is just to pop it open. From that standpoint, it probably is. But is that really making a dent? And ultimately, I think the answer is probably no. From what I could see with Master Lock revenue, it is only increasing. There was, and again, some of this was coming from financial reports that you had to kind of pay to get the bigger breakdown on. But generally speaking, everything that I was able to see on samples and things like that just showed them doing better and better. Not not exponentially or anything like that, but a steady increase. And again, a lot of it, I think, is just coming down to their cost and just saturation in the market. It's just, they're way too easy to get a hold of. Now, I know there's some excitement about PacLock or Pacific Lock, and I think they just broke into, or they've started getting carried by one of the markets. I want to say it's Home Depot. Correct me if I'm wrong. So maybe there's something going on there. We'll see. Again, though, there's stuff that's meeting these similar price points. I've picked a few of them. Yeah, they're a little bit better. But, until they can really get in and just totally saturate, and that some name brand recognition starts to come into there, because do I have the one on me? I don't know if I've even got the one on me. I should have probably. Here's one. If you go into a store as an average consumer and you're seeing these two locks, right? Even if this is a better lock overall, let's say picking wise or whatever, there's not a whole lot of name brand recognition on that. And so you're very likely to view this as being a knockoff of this lock. And if this one's even modicumly the same price or a little bit cheaper, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to buy the name brand, right? Because you're going to be seeing this as kind of this off-brand thing. Even I'm not saying it is, but that's how it's going to be kind of viewed, right? To a general consumer, they look very similar. So you're still likely to grab a Master. So yeah, the 5th highest revenue brand in the US, and a company that's not as diversified as some of the other companies ahead of them, probably with the two exceptions being August and Latch, who seem very much in line with doing the smart lock commercial industry. And so it's going to be a little costlier, and for all I know, one of those is probably like the Apple computer of locks as well, who I really do like, but there's quite a bit of profitability in there, right? There's a lot of markup, and if you're doing a whole complete system for an office complex or something in the smart lock realm, there's a lot of potential for revenue there. So against a company who is looking at low-end residential all the way up, to higher options, but again, they're one of the more concentrated companies, right? As far as what they're putting out. So, yeah. There we go. I don't know where that really gets us if you have watched this whole thing. All right. But I just wanted to address that because we always see this thing about master locks being junk on lockpicking stuff. And while I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just simply saying they just don't have the incentive to make a better lock at this point. They've got the chunk of the market, and when you're number one, until something comes around that can start to whittle away at that in a noticeable way, and they can't maybe account for other factors or whatever, when they can look at somebody and say, this is a competitor and it's starting to get us, and word is getting out that, you can pick these things, with almost nothing. And that's starting to alarm our consumer base. You're just better off investing in more branding and more package printing, right? That's, I guess, the way capitalism goes. Anyway, on that note, we shall end this video. Thanks for watching, if you managed to make it through this whole thing. So, have a good one, everybody.